here with Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week, we're on episode 256, and we're asking, how many hats do indie authors wear? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free, as we have plenty of goodies for all. If you're feeling generous, a one-off donation will get you access to more treats, or you can become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. For this, you'll get access to all the items in our shop, including exclusive goodies, as well as access to monthly bonuses, all while helping to support our podcast. But of course, if that's not your style and you still enjoy the show, then please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already. And if you're watching on YouTube, please consider dropping the video a like. Thank you very much. All right, how many hats do indie authors wear? In my many years of working in the writing industry, being an author and working in freelance, I realized that we, as indie authors, wear a lot of invisible hats. I Googled it because I wanted to see if anybody else had the same idea, and I came across an article by Orna Ross dated back to early 2018. And I gotta say, I understood what the article meant and where they were going, but I didn't necessarily agree with it. And since this was written 7 years ago, I guess we can say maybe it's outdated information, since so much has changed in the writing industry and technology in general, and has changed so much in these past 7 years. So according to the article, indie authors only wear 3 hats. And that's what I don't agree with at all. I view the hats, I guess you could say we wear 3 hats if they're like nesting dolls. And they're 3 really tall top hats with a bunch of mini hats inside. And the way the article explains it is that the first hat indie authors wear is the maker hat. And that's the producer hat for different products and projects. I can speak. The second hat is the manager hat, which is all the processing for profits and plans. And the third hat is the marketer hat for positioning, pitches, and publications. And basically what that means is the maker hat is the work you do in your business. The manager hat is the work you do on your business. And the marketeer hat is what you work on to grow your business. But as I said, I think that those can be like the 3 tall top hats with a bunch of mini hats inside of them. The first hat, the maker hat, that would include mini hats such as outlining and research and writing and editing and just basically all of the whole writing process. And I know that not a lot of writers outline and plan their novels ahead of time. Many of us are pantsers, but that is still something that we do at some point in the writing process whenever we're working on our novels. We do keep notes to the side. We outline a little bit or we plan certain scenes. And also, research. Research is a huge component of writing a novel, especially if you're writing genres like historical fiction. The research in and of itself is a huge job because you're playing detective. You're an investigator trying to gather all this information to ensure that your novel is as accurate as a fiction novel can be. So I think the first hat, or I guess if you want to count each hat individually, I think I just listed like 5. Outlining and research, writing, editing. And of course, like the writing part of it, that also has steps because you write draft 1 and then once you revise that draft, you have to rewrite it into draft 2 and so on and so forth.
I think the problem with kind of breaking it down to just 3 hats, and as you said, they're like kind of umbrella hats where all the little mini hats are underneath, is it can be quite a shock to writers to realize how many tasks you have to manage as a writer. It's not just write, edit, send it for publishing, it's out in the world, done. And I think even those 3 hats, like you're right, technically they umbrella everything. And it's like, yes, you could say the maker, that is your writer, that's you brainstorming, that is you sorting out the edits that you do yourself and also working with betas and things like that, and then moving on. I get that. I do get that. But I think I agree with you. I think it's better to break them into individual hats to give writers a real idea of like, right, these are the things you need to know how to do. And also you're going to have to learn some of these things. Like if you're not great at editing, because I know people who love writing and have like zero knowledge about editing. And I'm not saying editing as in professional editing, because you should be paying for that separately. But just the basics of story structure and sentence structure and punctuation, you need to learn that. That is a whole hat on its own. And I think by making sure we understand the different hats, it kind of makes it clearer the things you need to know. And if you don't know them, you need to learn them.
That's actually a really good point too, because you have to learn the craft of writing and you have to always further your knowledge. And it's also the reading too. You also have to be a reader if you want to be a writer, because you need to kind of see what others are doing within the genre. There's just so much to it. And I think what you said about how overwhelming it can be to see all the little tasks, I mean, that is true. It's not like you're just putting on your maker hat and you're saying, "Okay, I'm gonna write chapter 1 and then I'm gonna edit it and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that." Like it's not all like rah rah all the time. You have to put on your writer hat and say, "Okay, I'm gonna get through the first chapter and then I'm gonna get through the second chapter. And if anything comes up that you need to learn about or you need to research, that's a whole different hat that you may need to put on the next day." You're going to wake up every morning and say, what am I going to be today? Am I going to be a writer, or am I going to be an editor, or am I going to be a researcher, or any other things you can think of? And I think that's the way that it should be broken down. And it's something that many people, or I guess I should say like non-writers, don't understand the amount of work and effort that we as indie authors put into our novels, because we are all those things. And yes, you should hire outside editors, professional editors, but you yourself still need to do self-editing and go through it yourself with the fine-tooth comb. And then you need to go through that feedback from others, whether it's professional editor or you decide to use beta readers in addition to that. It's a lot. And I don't know, people just don't realize it. But the next hat is the manager hat. And again, I think, again, the article, the manager hat is what you use to work on your business. And that is so extensive. I actually think that the maker hat is the easier hat out of all of them. The manager hat next, that is the published. Again, we're talking about indie authors, and things are a little bit different for traditionally published authors. But for indie authors, the manager includes you being the publisher. You also need to be the formatter, unless you decide to hire outside for that, because you can do that. You're also just a business owner. Even if you don't want to be an author full time, it's still a passive income. So you need to be your own accountant as well. And then also just like basic business administrative stuff to keep everything organized. You have to be your own bookkeeper. You need to keep your own what's the word? Calendar. You got to keep your own calendar and schedule for your editing and your publishing and just all of that stuff. And it's crazy. It's a lot to manage, especially if you don't know what you're doing from a business standpoint, because, well, let's face it, most indie authors don't. I mean, a lot of indie authors, I don't think they went to school for business. So going back to the whole learning aspect, that's something else you got to learn. You don't have to just learn about the writing craft, but you also have to learn about running a business.
I agree. I think the manager one is probably the hardest. And I think it's because we come into writing with this enjoyment of the writing, hopefully, and we get a lot of passion out of that. Even when we're stuck in a rut, even when we're stuck with the editing, there is still this passion drive because we want to tell our story. Managing the business side is tedious. Not everything is. I'll be honest. I'm one of those sad people that love spreadsheets, and that's how I run my whole business on my Etsy shop. I have spreadsheets for everything, all tied in neatly, and it all helps me with my taxes. But if you're not into that, if you don't know how to run a business, you have to learn, and you have to think about things that you might not even think about. Like we talked recently about author insurance. You might never have known that was a thing. We talk about the fact that obviously different countries have different regulations or requirements. In America, you can register your copyright. In the UK, you can't. Technically, you just have copyright the moment you produce something. And that's correct for both countries. But in America, you can actually go and register your copyright. We don't have that in the UK. So you have to be aware of things like this. It is a constant learning thing. I remember there is an author who made a mention about this. They got an artist to create character art that was then used on their book cover. So it was not book cover art, it was a character art, and then they used that as their book cover. They needed to make sure they got commercial licensing to do that. It wasn't like, oh, I can just get. So it's things like that. You have to be aware of requirements. You want to sell or merch out character art that you've got an artist to produce, you need to make sure you've got the right license for that. If you are going traditionally published as well as in, if you want to be a hybrid or anything like that, or you have to think about the contracts you might need to sign. I know we're talking indie authors, but it's just something to think about. This is what business is. It's contracts. It's the minutia of paperwork. Oh my God, so much paperwork, of knowing how to move it forward, of knowing why you need an ISBN and why you might want to buy your ISBN rather than just get like Amazon's ISBN. I think the learning is the hardest in this part, in the business section, because especially if you're creative, we're not always drawn to the monotony of business, the back end stuff that nobody really sees when you're tracking your sales, when you're tracking your data, when you're using that to plan your next launch, to see how it works, figuring out how ads work. I mean, I know that's technically the marketing one, so I'm going to skip past that, but figuring out how to do things. And again, it's like, yes, you can go on Google, you can check, but again, every country is different, every system is different. You have to make sure you're learning it for the correct things. And yeah, it's awful. And I know you said, like, with a formatter, like, you can pay somebody else, but that's part of business, isn't it? You then have to find a formatter, you have to check their prices, you have to check their quality, so it's quality control. Same with book cover artists. You could say that's under maker, but at the same time, you're not making it, you are hiring somebody, and that is a process. Like any form of employee that you hire, or any other sort of freelance work, it's all, some of them will have contracts, some of them will have requirements, and it's just deadlines. And oh my God, the more I'm thinking about this, the more it's just stressing me out. But yeah, so I agree. I like the idea of breaking it down to realize that, yeah, you're going to have to understand how you file your accounts for your country, how you record your accounts to make it accurate, how you keep your paperwork. I mean, they're very good. I mean, like, if I take the UK, HMRC, which is our tax people, they are so good at going, oh yeah, it's fine, you have it digital. But then there's always a little thing saying, if it goes wrong and you lose all your digital copies, that's not going to save you from an audit. That's not going to save you from the tax man coming. So then you're like, oh, maybe I do have to keep pages and pages of documents for 7 years. Things like that. You need to know this stuff. It's making me angry already just thinking about it. I'm going to stop.
This is turning into a really stressful episode, I gotta say. But you know what? You bring up a great point, because we were talking about author insurance in a previous episode, and you should be your own accountant and business owner and administrator. But that actually kind of brings on a whole nother set of either learning or just something to add to your budget, because a really great thing to do would be to speak to a professional accountant, speak to a professional lawyer, get advice from them about what you should do. And whenever you have any contracts or you hire somebody, or hey, even if you do decide to go the traditional route with or without an agent, have a lawyer or somebody in that field in your back pocket, so that they too can look at the contract and figure things out for you and help advocate for you. Because you can advocate for yourself, but if you don't know what you're talking about, then it's kind of null and void if you really think about it. It's not going to work. But finally, the third hat, according to the article, is a marketer hat. And we're going to break this down into many, many little hats, many, many little beanies, if you want to say. And when it comes to marketing, you have to be your own graphic designer, not necessarily for the cover, unless you yourself are a professional graphic designer. You should hire somebody professional to do your book cover. But anyway, graphic designer for like social media and things like that. Just general marketing and PR, unless you hire a book publicist yourself, which again, added cost. You got to worry about your media kit, set up blog tours, book signings, merch, possibly. If you decide to sell your books on your own, like on your own website and things like that, that's something else that you got to worry about, especially if you do paperback and hardcover. Then, you need to have a stack of your own books. And then when people order it, you got to go to the post office and do all that fun stuff. And you need to have, it's not even necessarily the act of marketing and spreading the word about your books. You have to have the confidence and thick skin to want to talk about your work too. And that in itself is a learning curve. I think there's a theme. I feel like we need to just put on another hat for learning and bolstering yourself up to prepare yourself to be an indie author.
Well, that's it. It is, a lot of it is learning, because you might have a natural inclination to be a writer. You might even have a really great natural talent. Does not mean that you can skimp on skill or push yourself and learn and practice and practice. Talent will only get you so far. But almost nobody has talent for basic business or even marketing. I suppose some people do, but honestly, most of us, especially with the systems constantly changing, all you have to do is look at how ads change these days. Things on social media that used to work don't work anymore. You have to constantly be learning the way the algorithm works, where your audience is, because as you get older, as your audience gets older, as you change genre or whatever, your audience changes. If you are changing genre, that is. You have to be constantly aware of where everybody is. You have to be, like, if you talk about if we talk about blog tours and book signings / book tours, those are two separate things. One is reaching out to people online, so you have to be a good communicator. The other might be ringing people, I know, terrifying, or going into places and arranging book signings. And even if you manage to do most of it on the phone or on email, even better, you still have to be in front of people if you decide to do a book signing or a conference or like a workshop or giving a talk about your book. Because if someone offers and you feel comfortable enough doing that, you have to then learn more about the best way of doing public speaking and communicating with people to get them interested in your work. So again, how many of us are going, yeah, that's so easy, I know exactly what to do? No. No. And there's only so much you can learn online without going down a rabbit hole. Because let's be honest, we've all done it, where you've picked a subject and then you've read about 15 different blog posts, watched many videos, and everyone's saying different things, and you're like, oh, which one should I do? It's like merch. Do you make your own merch? Do you license out your merch so that other people make it and you take a cut? In which case, we're back to contracts. You need to make sure you have something in writing with that organization. You need to make sure you have information about what rights you will give up, or what commercial licenses you will give. Or maybe you think, no, I want to do it all myself. In which case, great. Now you've got a merch shop to manage as well. So as Rachel said, you're packing, you're going down to the mail, you're going down to the post office. So now you're a mail person. I don't even think we realized how many hats until we started talking, did we?
No, because as we've been having this conversation, we keep adding things to the list. And I feel like we should just, you know what, forget what I said about the 3 tall top hats and having a bunch of hats inside. I think we just need one giant top hat, and we'll name it stress. And then we'll put all the other hats inside of that. Or maybe it shouldn't even be a hat. Maybe we should just be on a boat. I don't even know. Because I mean, if you think about it, between everything we've mentioned, I'm going to count on our list. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 18 things on our list. So that's at least 18 hats. And I'm sure we've forgotten stuff, because the whole marketeer hat, I mean, that's networking, and networking can branch out into a million different spaces. And with social media, you have so many different social medias. You have X, you got Instagram, TikTok. It's just, and then you got to find book reviews, and you can either outsource to book bloggers, or you can go on book review websites such as like Book Sirens and Readsy and Kirkus Reviews. But again, that is also networking. It all goes under this giant umbrella, and it branches out into a million different little raindrops. And I'm going to use raindrops because it makes you sad, because it's stressful. I mean, it's worth it in the end. I guess we should end this on a high note. It is worth it in the end. And even though it's intimidating and it is a huge learning curve, it's doable. Like, don't listen to us and then say, wow, this is really stressful. Never mind, I don't want to do this anymore. But it's fine. You can do it. Indie authors have been doing it for years. And even though we have a lot of things to deal with, and there's just so many different punches coming at you from all these different directions. It is doable and it's manageable. And it's just, again, it's a learning curve. Once you figure it out once, the next time will be easier, although it's still going to be different. Don't think that once you've figured it out once, you've cracked the code, because you didn't. Sorry, just say.
I'm just going to throw in a quick few bits. Firstly, yeah, you're also going to be a data analysis person, because as Rachel said, things change, and as you're learning, you know, a lot of it's going to be a learning curve and going, oh, that didn't work, gotta try something else. But also, just to help you out, we have actually got episodes, I am almost sure, as I say this, I'm suddenly not so sure, on creating a business plan for authors, marketing strategies. I find the best way to deal with this kind of like, oh my gosh, so many hats, very stressful, is planning. Figure out what you need to do. Figure out your systems as soon as you can. Even if you're not fully published, start thinking about, you know, on those days when you just can't do any more editing, or you're just tired of looking at your novel and you just want to, you know, put your fist through the computer. Think about setting up spreadsheets. Think about how you would want to do things, or look into formatters or anything like that. You know, it's all under the umbrella of writing. You're okay. Another umbrella. And also, the writing community, touch wood, is mostly good people. And if you're really struggling, reaching out to people and finding out, like, how did you manage this? Or is this something? I think most of them will try and help, you know? So if you're really struggling and you're not sure about how to do something, speak to your fellow writers, you know? Reach out, and I guarantee somebody in the industry will help you. Someone will give you either a push in the right direction, or will set you up with all the information you need. So yeah, it's not all negative.
All right, with that said, I think Ari wrapped it up pretty well and left it on a high note. So before we leave, if you do want to learn more about us and the podcast and opportunities to be a guest on the show, don't forget to check out our website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. So we're going to turn it over to you guys. In the meantime, how many hats do you wear when creating your books? Because I'm sure that there are some things that we forgot. Let us know your answers in the comments so we can chat about it. Remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday, and next week we're discussing the risks of sending out ARCs. To ensure you don't miss it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thank you for listening to the Merry Writer Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Writing Distractions. We're stalling on our whims. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.